All rise back from recess. This is a continuation from yesterday's hearing. And prior to going on recess, we informed the Secretary of Commerce as well as Mr. Sustaisagui to appear before the committee this morning. Both individuals are present, and at this time, I would like to invite Secretary Leon Guerrero as well as Mr. Taisui to please join us in the chamber, and please remain standing as both of you get sworn in by our counsel.
Morning, gentlemen. Just please raise your right hand and I'll swear you in at the same time. Mr. Edward D. Leon Guerrero, Mr. Jesus Taisagui, do you solemnly swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony you shall give in the matter at hand shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you very much.
Thank you, counsel. Before we proceed, I just want to acknowledge first Secretary Leon Guerrero. Will you be testifying this morning? And so, because all right. Sorry. Thank you. Thank you for that. I guess at this time, Mr. Taisagui, you will be excused until we conclude the hearing with Mr. or Secretary De Guerrero. But we will notify you of when your scheduled hearing will be. Thank you.
One question, Mr. Taisagui. When you return, will you be testifying? Will you have a counsel with you or not? Tizumase. Was it recorded?
Yeah, his mic was on.
Oh. For the record, Mr. Taisagui, I asked him if when he is asked to return for his testimony, whether he will be with counsel, and he has replied that he will not be with counsel. He will testify by without counsel.
Mm.
And again, Mr. Taisagui has just affirmed what I have just put into the record. This is a small state.
Algumas.
Thank you. And good morning again, Secretary. We'll just get right into it. Please state your name and position for the record.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning, Chairman and Vice Chairman and all the members of this committee. My name is Edward M. De Leon Guerrero, and I am the Secretary of Commerce.
Thank you, Mr. De Leon Guerrero. How long have you been in this position?
I've been Secretary of Commerce for just about 2 years,
2 years.
or almost 2 years. Yeah.
Would you happen to know when was the Boost program officially launched?
Well, to my recollection, we started meeting, I think, in August, and I think the Boost program started in October. The first part of the rollout was, I think, sometimes in October, early October.
October being the first award date, or being the first the opening date for submission of applications?
That's my recollection. Is that
Just point of clarification, Mr. Chairman.
State your point.
Could we ask Mr. De Leon Guerrero, when he said he started meeting in August, you mean August 2021 or just this last August 2022?
just this last August 2022?
Thank you.
Secretary, do you know who came up with the idea of the Boost program?
My understanding is that that came out of the governor's office, and Commerce was selected as one of the agencies to participate in the rollout of the program. So that was Commerce, Department of Finance, the governor's office, and the Banco Saipan.
And what was your particular role within the Boost program?
Okay, when we first met, the commerce role is that because commerce is dealing with businesses, that we were very interested when we heard that this program is going to help the small businesses. So we are participating to ensure that this goes out to all our people that are qualified, so that we can spread this help out because of the impact that we have on different types of calamities here in Saipan, all that COVID, typhoons, and all that. I know personally as Secretary of Commerce that there's a lot of small business out there and new entrepreneurs that are really struggling and needs help.
Okay, thank you for that. But I guess what exactly did you do in this program? What was your role?
Okay, my role is at the beginning. This program was we were put together and we start planning on how we can roll this out as a loan program, forgivable loan program. So we get together a couple of times at Banco Saipan to discuss how we're going to do that. What is the best way to do it? We ask recommendations from Banco Saipan as they are professional in giving out loans, and we try to put together how we're going to do it. And then as we get closer to starting the loan program, we got information from the Secretary of Finance and the Governor's office that this program cannot be put out as a loan, and it will have to be a grant. So at that time, there's a little bit change in terms of how we're going to roll out this program, and we discussed with Banco Saipan what things that are needed. They came out with requirements for the application of making sure that if a corporation is applying, that they are actually in good standing or in existence, and if it's a sole proprietorship, that they need to have a business license and also a clearance of tax payment with finance, and some other documents that they need to sign once they accepted the award. So that was, my role at the beginning was just to come in and help with that process.
And were you personally asked to be part of this program?
Yes, I was called by the chief of staff that commerce will be part of the program, and said I'm very glad to be part of that because I want to make sure that we help our small business out there. But from the beginning, I just want to make this clear that from the beginning, when we were still planning to make this a loan program, and the question or the idea of how this approval going to go through, uh, as Secretary of Commerce, I submitted what do you call this? I appointed Jess Taisagwi as the Director of Economic Development from Commerce to represent me on a panel that will make the decision or make the recommendation for any of the applicants. I recused myself on that process. So I was only part of the planning and not the panel.
Thank you for that. Um, when you had these meetings when the committee or the panel was trying to formulate the program, who was normally present in these meetings?
It's the Banco Saipan, Will Castro, the Secretary of Finance, Atalik, myself, and also Jess Taisagwi.
So both you and Mr. Taisui were present during these meetings and not one or the other?
Yes, because he is heading the economic development, so I feel strongly that he should be part of this, planning of this program.
Would you happen to know what are the regulations or conditions of the Boost program?
I'm not privy on the regulations of the program.
But were you part of being a member of the panel that was formulating this program?
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you talk? I thought you're talking about the funding, the regulation from the treasury. I'm not aware of that. But in terms of the planning, I am aware of certain requirements that we impose on applicants to be able to have a complete package, no? And that's as I said before, that's making sure that these applicants are indeed, if they are a corporation, that they're indeed you know uh, certificate of existence comes up from Department of Commerce. And then if they are private sole proprietorship, then they need to have their business license submitted and also tax clearance from the Department of Finance.
Okay.
And and on top of that, they also have to have a business plan or business profile and some of those things that Banco Saipan requires.
Okay. Thank you. And other than yourself and Mr. Taisui, has anyone? Are there anyone else from the Department of Commerce that participated in this boost program?
No.
What about the registrar of
Well,
corporations?
the registrar's participation is only to assist the applicants that need to be issued a certificate of existence.
Okay. Thank you for that, Secretary. I will like to now open the floor to the members. Yeah, we'll do follow up right now if any members have any. I recognize Rep. Sablan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and welcome and good
Thank you.
morning, Secretary De Leon Guerrero. Thank you for being here today and thank you
Mhm.
for your testimony. I wanted to clarify, so was your first involvement in the Boost program just in August of this year, or were there previous planning meetings that you participated in?
Uh, the only thing that I really recall as being involved was when I was called over to Banco Saipan to meet with the group. No, prior to that, I was not part of that
Mhm.
of the idea to start out the Boost program.
And you were called to Bank of Saipan by Mr. Castro, the
Yes,
Chief of Staff?
yes.
Okay, and that was in August.
Yeah, I think and that's, from my recollection, I think that's in August. That's just
Mhm.
to start talking about how we can roll this thing out
And
as
okay.
as a loan.
Okay. And you mentioned that Mr. Castro was the one who called you and said that Commerce will be involved, right?
Yes.
Was there ever like an appointment letter from Mr. Castro or from the governor that designated you to be part of this program?
No, not really. No.
Okay. And then you also said that, and sorry, who from the Bank of Saipan was in that meeting that you
John
attended?
Arroyo is
John
always in
Arroyo.
that meeting.
Any other staff?
And that lady, I don't know what her name is, but it's always one lady.
Karen?
I think
Callan? Does
Karen,
that
yes.
sound familiar? Okay.
Yes.
Um, and and then your part in this meetings was just to coordinate
Yes.
Commerce's role in
Just
providing.
to to emphasize what commerce role is,
Mhm.
and also to kind of encourage the group that we need to spread this thing out,
Yeah.
okay, to many of our people that are out there right now that needs help, no.
Yeah.
And that's and we were trying to also make a decision in terms of the threshold in loan for the different types of applicants.
Mhm.
But then when they change it to a grant, then those just become a history.
And do you know why it changed to a grant?
Because from my understanding, we were told that U.S. Treasury will not allow it to be a loan, that it
Okay.
has to be a grant. Okay.
And who told you that? Was that the Secretary of Finance?
Yes. And,
Okay. Okay. And then did you have a role in developing like the qualifications or the eligibility guidelines for applicants for boost grants?
we discussed it. We discussed what in we discussed it, and that was when we decided that any applicant will need to submit at least a business profile,
Mhm.
an interest letter that they want to participate in the boost program. They need to have the clearance from Commerce and business office, and and uh, and those are the things that were required. Yeah. And
Okay.
that should be submitted over to the administrator, which is Banco Saipan,
Mhm.
and then they'll look at it whether it's complete. And my understanding is that they'll send it up to the panel for them to, to review it and make recommendation over to the governor
Right.
for approval.
And now, you mentioned that you recused yourself from the review process.
Yes.
What was there a letter appointing you to the review panel, and then you recused yourself?
No, during that time we were discussing about, as to who will be the review panel.
Mhm.
So in the discussion, we mentioned that all the agencies that are mentioned to be part of the administration of this program.
Mhm.
So then I at that meeting, Jess was there and everybody was there. I told them that for commerce, I am appointing Jess to be in the panel to replace me, because my understanding on that one, or my concern was that if if the three of us or the four of us that are trying to implement this program have the final say so, then I want an independent panel to be making the recommendation, and not us who's going to be approving it at the end of the day. So
I
that
see.
that was the
So you appointed Mr. Taisagui to be
yes,
that independent panelist?
an independent member of the panelists from Commerce. Yes.
I see. And did you document that recusal anywhere? Your recusal?
No, there's no documentation because they don't keep any minutes on these meetings.
Okay. Um, so you didn't keep notes from those meetings? No. Okay.
No, sorry.
Thank you. I yield at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. So again, sorry, Secretary, just to clarify, not once have you sat in any of the approval of these applications.
No.
At any point, did Mr. Taisui have to recuse himself and you come in for him?
Well, I've never been in that meeting, so I cannot say yes or no. But I've heard it that from our meeting with the rest that he recused himself on certain discussion, but I don't know what are those discussions.
Okay, but you did not sit in for him when he
No,
had to
I
recuse.
didn't. I did
Okay,
not.
clarified. Thank you. I recognize Rep. Probst.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr.
Good
Secretary.
morning.
Thank you for joining us today, sir. Um, I wanted to ask, with when you, because you have mentioned earlier in your testimony that uh, it was just Taisakwi that was a panelist, correct? And you were not a panelist,
No.
sir. That is correct. But you were part of the initial planning, the planning phase when they were
Yes.
developing this
Yes.
program. When you were in discussions with Mr. Arroyo and Mr. Castro, did any questions come up that arose when, because we're a small community, a lot of people are related. No?
Yes.
Did any conversation come up? What would happen if there was a conflict of interest? What the plan would be?
Yes. Well, that discussion came up, and the idea that came out was that if you have any conflict, then recuse yourself from the panel, because there's three of them. So even if one recuse himself, they still have a majority in the panel.
Okay, but that was the idea, that if there was some sort of conflict, they felt they were conflicted, they would in fact recuse themselves.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you. And then with regard to previous programs that have been rolled out, like the stimulus programs that we've seen, where, and also for CUC, right? Everybody that had a private account or whatever, if you had an account with CUC, you would get a $300 assistance, right? For that, that was pushed out so that they could reach as many of our people as possible. Was this ever considered some sort of process which every business would have some sort of equality or fairness when it came to this process? Because if you've noticed, we've received a lot of complaints where there are many businesses that did not get the opportunity, but there were several that did. So
Well, I am sorry, I cannot answer you with that because Commerce was not part of that.
okay, all right. Um, thank you. That's my follow-up questions. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. I recognize co-chair.
Thank you, Chairman Donald. Good morning, Secretary. Thank you for coming in here. Despite not having an attorney available, I appreciate your appearance here and your testimony today. So one of my questions is, You recused yourself, you said, from all reviewing panel meetings. Is that correct? Is that your testimony
I,
today?
re- yeah, I recuse myself from all reviews of applicants for the boost program.
Okay. Initially, you provided a list in response to the subpoena ducis tecum.
Mhm.
You responded and provided a list to the chairpersons, a 25-page list of businesses that were issued certificates of existence.
Mhm.
We specifically asked only for the boost, those involved in the boost. What was the reasoning? Is that the list that you provided, 25 pages of business names, were they all involved with the boost?
No. The request was to provide all certificate of existence that was issued out by the Register of Corporation, and that's why we took everything that we have on record. Now, when the second request came with the list of names or the list of companies that you wanted to be to see whether they get a certificate of existence, that's when we address only those that you have
Yes.
submitted to us, the name of the companies.
Yes, you did. And initially, I was confused why you provided a whole
Yeah.
list that had nothing to do with the boost. So thank you for clarifying
Yeah.
that. In response to the subpoena ducis tecum,
Mhm.
did you, Mr. William Castro, Chief of Staff to Governor Torres, and Mr. David Atlick, coordinate your responses to the subpoena ducis tecum? Do you remember the enumeration? Number one was asking for all documents related to the boost,
Mhm.
and your response was the Bank of Saipan is the program administrator of the boost, and the program administrator is the best source to provide the list of applicants and amounts awarded. And then you went on number two, and pretty much your answer, your response to the 7 items on the subpoena ducis tecum pretty much just basically told the committee chairs that please ask the boost administrator of the Bank of Saipan. Did you, Mr. William Castro and David Atlick, coordinate your responses?
No, no, ma'am.
I just want to state for the record that all your responses are somewhat identical. And then one last question. You mentioned that if and it was there was a discussion that if anybody had a conflict, they would recuse themselves. What would happen if all 3 members of the review panel had a conflict?
I cannot answer you that. I
Was there any discussion related to that?
there was no discussion to that. Yeah.
Okay. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. 1 second. Rep, or Vice Speaker.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Oh yes. Were you? Did you have a follow up? Oh no, but before that, then we'll go Rep Staffler.
I'll yield to a
Right.
follow-up question if
Get your hand up.
sure. I'll yield to a follow-up question.
Your hand up earlier, Rep Staffler. Okay, so we'll go to Vice Chair and then Rep Sablan. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and welcome again, Mr. De Leon Guerrero. I just have a couple of follow-ups. So earlier, Chair Manglonia asked you who came up with the idea for the Boost program, and you said it was the governor's office. Can you tell us who from the governor's office that the idea came from?
Well, the only contact that I have in regards to the boost program at the government's office is Will Castro. Will Castro.
So Will Castro came up with the idea for the Boost program. Is your
I don't know who came up with the idea, but he was the one who contacted me that he want commerce to participate in this
Oh.
program. Yeah.
Okay. Also, you stated that Will Castro called you back in August to let you know that that Commerce will be involved with the Boost program initially as a loan program, right?
Mhm.
When did the team realize that the ARPA funds couldn't be used for as a loan?
I cannot tell you the exact date, but this is in one of our continued meeting to try and finalize the loan program. We were informed by the Secretary of Finance that he just got a, a message, or he got a notice from the Treasury that we cannot use that money for loan, and it has to be a grant.
So this was in August. I'm not asking for specific date if you can't recall, but approximately at what point did the team realize that the money couldn't be used for that?
If I recall right, we probably had already met 4 times on the loan process prior to that coming up.
So around, still within August, within
Or
September,
August, or probably middle part of September.
and then the program was rolled out in October, correct?
Yes, I think yes.
So within that period of time, such a short period of time,
Mm.
the team was able to come up with all the policies and procedures and internal controls to roll this program out
That's-
within weeks.
Well, but when it becomes a grant, it becomes a little bit less requirements that the bank had requested for, and so the decision was again to come up with just the things that I mentioned. Is for someone to come up with their business profile, come up with a business plan, a letter of interest to participate in the program, get a clearance on your tax, get your license in, or your certificate of existence, and that should be make all the requirements that the applicant should meet.
Okay. To your knowledge and recollection, the panel review members are Will Castro, David Atalig, Mr. Taisagui, and yourself, correct? But you stated earlier that you recused yourself from all reviews of
Yes.
application.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you did mention that Mr. Taisagui also recused himself from some of those applications, correct?
I cannot vouch for that because I wasn't in that meeting. I was not in the panel meeting when he recused himself. But it was discussed that anybody that have any conflict needs to recuse himself prior to those process happening.
Right. But
Okay.
did you not testify earlier that he recused himself from some applications?
No, that was the conversation that I had, but to vouch that he actually recused himself on that on a certain panel meeting, I cannot do that because I'm not in a panel meeting.
Got it. So you just heard that he
He
recused himself
Yes,
from reviewing some
yes,
applications.
yes.
But he never shared with you, or I mean, being that you designated him, he never shared with you that he recused himself from some applications?
No, well, he came to me. We had a discussion. He came to me one time asking me about if someone is local agent in a corporation, does that person a part owner of the corporation? And what a local agent is just for the purpose of serving serving subpoenas or anything like that when we cannot find the incorporator, but not necessarily means that they're part of the corporation or they have an interest in the corporation. So I told him that we discussed that, but my recommendation and our understanding was that if you see that there is that even a little bit of conflict of interest because you are part of that, as a agent, recuse yourself. Okay, because you still have two people that can make decision.
So
in there.
just to be clear, Mr. Taisagui never told you that he recused himself from any of review of applications. You just heard it from someone else?
Uh, that's to my recollection. Yes.
Okay. Um, since you heard it from a third party, do you know which applications he recused himself, or did
No,
they did
no,
was it mentioned?
I'm not privy with that. I don't even know the applications. No.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Younger.
I recognize Rep. Sablon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just a couple more, I guess, clarifying questions. You earlier stated that your only point of contact with the Office of the Governor for the Boost program was Mr. Castro. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
So there was nobody else at the Office of the Governor that you communicated with respect to this program?
No.
Not even the governor himself?
No.
Okay. And then an earlier witness testified that you appeared with Mr. Taisagui at the Bank of Saipan to review applications.
I'm not aware of that.
So it is your testimony that you never reviewed applications
No, I've
with
never,
Mr.
I've
Taisagui
never
at the
gone
bank?
to the Bank of Saipan to review applications.
Okay. And then another witness also testified that you were a review panelist and that sometimes Mr. Taisagui would substitute for you. So,
No,
so it is your testimony that that never happened either?
that doesn't happen. No.
Okay. And then I wanted to clarify, in the planning meetings that you did participate in, was there any discussion of the order of applications and how the order in which applications would be reviewed?
It's no. The only thing that I understand was that the Bank of Saipan is to review the application and see whether it's complete, and then forward it over to the panel.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only understanding that I have with in the process of that application.
But in those planning meetings, there was never discussion of first come, first serve or any other way
No, no.
no. Okay. Was there any discussion of deadlines?
Well, there's several deadlines that I think the first rollout was in 30 days, and then after that they extended again, and I think this is 3 times again that they extended this program. And sometimes, we the group met not as a panel but meet to discuss why are we extending these programs, or a concern that I have sometimes is, do we have money to extend these programs, and also to no, to discuss about those incomplete applicants. How can we move forward, in trying to assist those applicants, or letting them know that they need to submit certain documents to complete their applications. No? So those are some of the concerns that sometimes we meet, uh, the group meet to discuss, but not to be a panel to make decision in terms of who is going to be awarded or who are the applicants.
I see. Not to review applications
No.
together,
No.
but to discuss things like the
Moving
deadlines and
forward,
the
yes,
incomplete
yes,
applications.
Yes.
Whose decision was it to extend the deadline several times?
Well, it's a joint decision. We went there and we met, and we saw that there are a lot of interests. I mean, I get calls like 10 times a day on people that are interested in applying and asking how they can apply, and I always refer them over to Bank of Saipan, because Bank of Saipan have and also the website that we have on the Boost program. But so we share that information, that there are a lot of incomplete application, and there's also a lot of new interest coming in. And so if there is available funding, then we're trying to push for to extend it, so that we can give opportunity for these other interested people, and the people that have incomplete application, to complete the application so that they can move forward.
Okay. Whose idea was it to extend the deadline in the first place, though?
I think it's a joint
Okay.
decision.
Because there was so much interest.
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then when you asked, well, do we have enough money? What was the
Well,
response?
the impression that I get was that yes, the Secretary of Finance will look into the funding, and he believes that there is still money available to extend this program. So that's when I said yes, we want to help as many as we can.
Okay. And then also in your discussions in these planning meetings, was there ever a discussion of the types of grants that would be awarded, like to the small businesses, the nonprofits, the incubator grants? Was there that discussion too that you
No,
were part of?
I've never been part of that discussion for the other than the small business.
Okay.
I don't know anything about the fishing and all that, and I don't know about all the others.
Okay.
Okay, we've never discussed that in our meeting.
And then what about the rubric for evaluations? Was that part of your planning meetings?
No, the rubric is. I think that's a discussion that has to do with the Bank of Saipan, or the panel itself. The panel, how they're going to move up. I was not part of that.
And then the caps on awards. Did you discuss that?
The caps on award was discussed when it was going to be a loan.
Okay.
But after that, when it becomes a grant, that kind of, was never discussed in terms of there would be no discussion on the caps, because my understanding is that we knew there's not enough money to to award every applicant that comes in with the request. So
Okay. And then my final question for this follow-up round is, you testified that your interest was in making sure that the funding would be spread out, right?
Mhm.
And that as many people as possible who qualified and who needed help
Mhm.
could be helped.
yes,
How can you just tell us what the discussions were to make sure that that would happen, or was there a discussion to make sure that that would happen?
the only discussion that we have about that I insisted was providing additional technical assistance to applicants to expedite your application. And we did that. I even sent the Register of Corporation to RORA, and also Finance sent their somebody to be able to certify them in RORA. And then Banco Saipan also have, I think, uh, I'm not too sure what's the name of the company that was doing technical assistance also in writing up the plans. And I know SBDC also was helping on the other side. So that kind of give expedite, increase the number of people in ROTAC tremendously in terms of interest. At the beginning, there was only like maybe 8 applicant came in. After we provide all of after that the provide all of those assistance, it went up to a lot more than what we anticipated.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah, and when you look back now that the program is really ended, right?
Mm.
When you look back, do you think that the funds were distributed as fairly and as equitably as you had hoped?
I cannot answer that because I don't know how much each of the recipient receive. Whether on those that were approved, I don't know how much money they spread out to these new applicants. So
You haven't seen the reports of how
no,
many people got how much funding?
I've seen the names, but I don't see the amount that were awarded to them.
Oh, and you haven't asked for that either.
No, not that I don't have no,
Hmm. Why haven't you asked for that?
because I'm relying on Jess that they're making that decision. So
Mhm.
and plus I don't know. I don't think I can do anything about it because I'm not in a position to provide additional funding for those programs. So
Okay, so from your perspective, Mr. Taisagui was the lead then for the Department of Commerce.
when it comes to awards, when it comes to approving applicants.
Okay, and could you clarify then, it's your testimony today that the only panelists who reviewed applications were Mr. Castro,
Mhm.
Secretary Atelig, and Mr. Taisagui?
That's correct.
Just those three?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And what was your understanding of Mr. Castro's role in the Boost program?
Well, I look at him as our leader in this program, and that you know I really don't know, but my understanding is that the process is they come in, 3 of them, and review the applicants and make recommendations over to the governor for final decision, and that's all I know. Of. But his role is just like us. We went to the meeting and we discuss and we decide what's best for the program to move forward.
But you saw him as the leader, the director of the
That's what I
program,
look up
in a way.
to know because, as I said, Commerce doesn't have really any authority here. And the funding is not coming from us.
Mhm.
It's just for us to come in and help in administering this program by writing some recommendations and all that.
Okay. And what was your understanding of Secretary Atalig's role in the Boost program?
Well, Secretary Atalik we depend on him in terms of letting us know whether there is any funding, additional funding available. His understanding of the rules and regulations that these monies are governed from the Treasury departments, and all, those are things that we rely on him.
Okay. And in terms of the contracts that were awarded for the administration or the marketing or promotions or other various events associated with Boost, did you have any role at all in any of that?
No,
No role in the contracts? Okay. Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. I recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you. I have one question, only one question before we move forward. Has Mr. Castro, Mr. David Atlick, Mr. Taisagui, or Mr. Arroyo, has anybody ever asked you to expedite the issuance of certificates of existence in order to fast track a certain application?
no.
Thank you.
I recognize Vice Chair. Go ahead.
Just one follow-up. Did you at any time ever observed or witnessed Mr. Castro giving instructions to the review panel or Bank of Saipan to either expedite specific applications or to issue checks or to keep checks or any of that sort outside of his role as a panel member?
No.
Thank you. Recognize Vice Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Guerrero. Welcome to your chamber. Earlier, you had mentioned that you had appointed Mr. Taisagui to sit in the panel because you will be a part of the final decision on the approvals of these applications.
No, what I said was that was my concern. If I should be one of the the final decision maker, then I don't want to be in that panel. I want just as Segway to be in that panel so that when it comes to me to make a final decision, I have no conflict on making that decision.
And that it never got to that point.
No, that's never got to that point.
No, I see that's very important because even, as a Commerce Secretary, you see it as very important that you separate
Yes.
the review panel from the final process, right? And we appreciate also that you question the availability of funds, whether it be sufficient enough to continue with the program.
Mm.
And you were a part of the first meeting or first few meetings of this?
I think I was part of the first meeting.
Only the first meeting?
No, the
So
The
how
meeting-
how many specific
I think
meetings?
we've met there about 6 times.
6 times?
Yeah.
And this is regarding the whole program in
Just the
itself,
whole
right?
program in itself. Yes.
And we would assume if this program was going to roll out, it's a new program and it's dealing with the funds outside of the CEDABI, that there will be potential guidelines to it, correct?
Yes.
At least in your statements, you were very concerned of the funds and making sure that the review process is correct and the final decision is separate from the review process. Were there any guidelines?
Oh well, that's where personally I was relying on the administrator, the Bank of Saipan, because they are the professionals in giving out loans. No, at the same time too, I I, I was the person that know the regulation in terms of how you spend the money from all of these different program lies on the Secretary of Finance. So we all there together with our knowledge to put together these grants. So that's I am really not well versed in terms of what are the requirements in rolling out this type of funding to.
Sure, but when you mentioned that the Bank of Saipan is more proficient in the loans
Mhm.
because they're a lending institution,
Mhm.
right? And you're relying on the Secretary of Finance on the funds. But with just your statements earlier, you were concerned of how this process is going to move forward. So you didn't bring up the question of what guidelines would be at least for the review panel, because the Bank of Saipan is only gonna process these documents. They're not gonna
Mhm.
review them. They're gonna end up in the review panels.
No, I wasn't. Yeah, I didn't recall. Discussing about that. Yeah.
About the guidelines.
Yes.
Was there any legal representation, at least in the discussions or the process of getting uh, this program up and going?
Not to my knowledge. No.
Not to your knowledge, nobody from the AG's office
No.
at all.
Not in our meetings. No.
How about the Banco Saipan's legal counsel?
I've
No.
never seen him in our meetings. No.
But all the meetings happen at the Banco Saipan
Yes.
office, correct? And everybody was present, including Mr. Taisagui, Mr. Castro, and Mr. Secretary Atalik.
Yes.
And you relied on Secretary Atalik's knowledge of the ARPA program to push forward with
Yes,
how the
because-
funds will be distributed.
Because we have no knowledge on that. Commerce doesn't.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Well, he's the expenditure of the funds, or
Yes.
the governor's expenditure of the funds, but it'll funnel through finance. But you never question why guidelines weren't at least documented at all, or minutes weren't documented, knowing the fact that these are external funds and it might possibly come back and be detrimental to not just the recipients, but to especially the Commonwealth government.
I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, I'm asking this because with your answers to a lot of the questions, you bring responsibility to the program itself, and unfortunately, it almost seems like they're bypassing everything. Maybe that's the reason why you appointed Mr. Taisago and you wanted to be at the final stage of the panel or the application process. Is that maybe a possible plan?
I guess I just rely that there are people in there that are well versed in terms of the the requirements for the use of those funds, and that if there's any concern on that, they'll bring it up during the. I just try to concentrate on what Commerce was trying to
Sure.
do.
So, okay. So the earlier question by the chairman was when I think Rep. Sablan brought it up that when there was no memo that came out to get everybody on the same in the same place to start discussing this program, kind of like a task force. There's nothing that ever came
Mhm.
out on that. They just
No.
called you up and say, "Commerce, we want you to be a part of this. Let's do it. Let's do this. We got additional funds from our part. It's part of the spending plan." Is that more so just a call and we're ready to go?
Well, it's just a call that they wanted to have a meeting at Banco Saipan to discuss about this program moving forward. That was the beginning of the.
Were there any restriction when you went from a loan pro? Obviously, the restriction was you can't loan the ARPA money
Yes.
out, right? Were there any other restrictions that you guys were discussing in the loan process?
No, not that I recall.
Not that you recall. Would that be something if we can rewind back time? Would that be something that you would have brought up then, knowing what you know now?
Uh,
At least in the initial stage. It's not fair in the review stage because you weren't a part of the review process. That'll be reserved for Mr. Taisago to answer.
well, I'm sorry, I can't say what would I have done if that was if I got those information then. But
Sure. No, because we don't have legal representation in the
No.
meeting. We're relying on the Secretary of Finance, which is only worried about how the funds can be used. But we also need to protect the central government. We're reaching out to a third party to be a part of this process, but they're only for receiving they're only the recipients of the documents. At the end of the day, it's going to be the three individuals that are going to review the documents to push forward, which should have been your level for approval. Correct?
yeah, well, the panel is just to make recommendations, but the final approval of those is the governor. So I guess I was relying on that they, if there's anything that Mr. Castro will know what are the requirements and all those different things. So
Sure. So the governor, in your chair position, to say that the governor is the final approval
like
of all the
in all the decisions of the panel, yes,
applications, correct?
yeah,
And the amounts.
on whatever the recommendation of the panel, it goes to the governor for final decision. Yeah,
So the governor can change the decision, can add additional funds, can remove funds, in your opinion?
I I think so. If it's the final approval, then but I've never seen that because I don't have any communication
Sure.
on that. Yeah.
Sure. And you also appointed Mr. Taisagwe with the understanding that it would possibly go back to your level for approval.
That was my, I was anticipating that might happen at the beginning.
Mhm.
And that's why I did that process.
Okay. But just in general with ARPA, you're not familiar with the ARPA process or anything like that?
No.
Restrictions?
No,
We just rely on what the Secretary of Finance says,
Yes.
kind of like in the budget process. Here's 20% will be used under ARPA and the 80% will be used under local funds.
yes.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield for now.
Thank you. I recognize Rep. Ropes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you again, Mr. Secretary. I just have a few questions for you. Um, I know you mentioned that you were not on the review panel. Is that correct?
Then,
But do you know who served on this review panel? You do know that
Yes, I
you
do.
designated Mr. Taisagui?
yes, I do. I do know who, sir.
Okay, who else? In
Mr.
addition-
Taisagui, Will Castro, and Secretary of Finance Dave Atalig.
Okay, and do you know if he was active in participating in the review panel, Mr. Atalig, the Secretary of Finance?
I cannot answer that because I'm not in that. I'm not in that panel.
Okay. Do you happen to know if anyone else might have joined in, such as Shane Villanueva? Do you know if
No,
his
no,
name ever came up?
no,
How about Miss Selena Sapp?
no,
No. Uh, Karen Kalin?
no,
Never. Those names never came up in your discussions with
no.
the panelists. Okay. Um, aside from Mr. Jess Taisagui, have you ever designated anyone else to be a member of the review panel in your place?
No,
Okay. Um, and again, do you have any documentation to show that you designated Mr. Taisagui, or was that just
No.
understood?
just understood in the meeting.
Okay, so it's verbal.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Um, and again, it is your testimony that you did not participate in the review panel.
No,
Okay, you didn't make any decisions on who would receive and how much they would receive.
no,
That was never part of your purview.
no,
Um, so again, just for clarification, at no time did any of these applications go to your desk and say, "Can you look at this?" Mr. Tyson, we never brought it to your attention and asked for your approval or thoughts on it.
no. Those application never left the bank.
It always stayed at the bank.
Yes.
Okay. And you never went to the Bank of Saipan to review those applications.
No.
But you've been to the Bank of Saipan.
Oh yes.
Okay.
That's where we have our meetings.
And you would have meetings. That was during the planning phase?
Yes, and then when moving forward, also when we're trying to decide whether no, do we extend it, that's when also again we come back and we start discussing, the reason for extension and how we're gonna do that.
Okay. And during the planning phases that you were involved in, who was Mr. Taisagui also with you during these meetings for the
Yes.
planning phase?
Yes.
Um, would you happen to know by discussion or through your interaction with the panelists who was the most active reviewer? Would you know who
No.
was the one that was really doing the interview or reviewing most of them?
No, I'm sorry. No, I'm never
Okay.
present on that.
They never shared that information with you,
No.
sir? Okay. What steps, if any, have been taken to assure that grants are not approved on the basis of political or family connections? Uh, what steps do you know of?
I don't. I don't know of any steps taken, but I can assure you that that discussion about political and other things is never a discussion. It's just based on the merit of the applications that comes in. That's how you decide, the the applicants whether they're entitled for the program or not.
Did you ever in your during the planning phase, you did see that there was hundreds and hundreds of applications coming forward, right?
Yes.
Did you, sir, as part of the planning phase, uh, think that this would be overwhelming for just two or three panelists to review hundreds and hundreds of applications?
No, that has never come into my mind.
Okay. When you were part of the initial planning of this program, originally was it going to be on a first come first served basis for these applicants?
Uh,
Was that discussed?
no, the discussion was that the complete applicants will be forwarded up to the panel, and then the panel will review the complete applicants. There's no mentioning with the first come first serve. Uh, and I think, and again, the only involvement we have here is just a small business, which is about, much less than, we have about almost 4,000 applicants, but some of the applicants are for the other programs like the fisheries and the other boost program that was added on.
Was there any discussions during the planning phase to try to see how this would be um, uh, decided on a fair basis based on, was it based on merit? Was it based on the actual award that would be the proposal that would be reviewed? Is it the business plan that would be reviewed? How was a formula selected for coming up with a particular percentage to give a particular company? And how would it be one company would receive a particular amount versus another company?
Well, I cannot answer you on that because I'm not a member of the panel. It's the panel that are responsible for determining that.
But during the planning phase that you were a part of, was that brought up about deciding some sort of rubric, some sort of system to put in place so that there would be fairness and that there would be records to show that fairness was used, was applied?
I don't recall that.
Okay. I yield at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Probst. I recognize Rep. Snaffler.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Commerce Secretary De Langreo, for coming in this morning. I wanted to ask a few questions just in general. What is the role of a local representative on the registrar of corporation? What is their actual role?
The local representative of the registrar.
Yeah.
Well, the registrar corporation never participated in any of our meeting.
I understand. I'm
Yeah,
just
the-
in
the
general,
only
not
role-
related to the boost, not
Yeah.
related to the boost. Just if I were to be signing on a registrar of corporation and I am the local representative, what is my responsibility to the CNMI government, to the laws that are in our community and the business that
Well,
I'm
the-
part of?
The responsibility of the registrar is to keep all records on all corporations established here in the CNMI, whether it's nonprofit, profit, domestic, and all, with the exception of the sole proprietorship.
So if I am a local representative listed underneath a registered corporation, what is my responsibility as the local representative? Because you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier.
your responsibility is only to accept, be served. If there's a lawsuit on that corporation, they cannot find the entity or the incorporator, then they will serve you that subpoena.
So is there any other responsibility? Like, is that person supposed to be part of that business at all? Like,
No,
are they
no.
supposed to have any kind of?
No. That person doesn't have any interest inside the business, doesn't have any shares, doesn't have any interest except just an appointment to be the what do you call this, the local agent of that corporation.
But as a local agent, there's no responsibility to following the CNMI laws with respect to.
No, I don't recall. No, I don't think so.
Doesn't really make sense. With respect to commerce and programs that you've run in the past, any program, when you make a plan for a program, how long does it take for commerce to roll out a plan when you make a plan?
What do you mean roll out? Commerce have the compliance responsibility. Most of the agencies that we have, we have really not seen any program roll out by Commerce in terms of like loans or grants to to businesses. It's just that our main responsibility is to ensure that they comply with the laws that governs corporations.
So that means the way that a commerce would roll out a program, it has to follow certain rules and regulations, and you guys make sure that all of those things happen.
Yes.
When you make a plan for any commerce program, though, you make sure that you follow documentation
Everything.
and things like that. So, looking at this program, the Boost program, are there any commerce programs that are similar to Boost in nature, supporting businesses
Uh,
through
no.
providing access to additional funds?
No.
In our budget hearing this year, May May 12th, you mentioned that there was COVID-19 relief money to the amount of like 10 to 15 million rolling out in the next 30 days for forgivable loans. Do you remember that during the budget
No.
hearings?
30
Or
million? 30 million? I think you're talking about the SSBCI.
there was that too. Was that 57 million?
That's 57 million.
And so that was also to be a type of forgivable loan,
Well,
like a PPP.
yeah, but Commerce is not the one rolling that out. That SSBCI is given over to what do you call this CDA to roll it out.
Would you say that that sounds similar to the Boost program?
No, the Boost program is not under Commerce.
I understand, but the idea of giving small businesses access to additional funds to support them because of the results of the pandemic, would you say it's similar?
Yeah, it's yes.
What are the difference between the Boost program, as you know it, and what you know about these other access that we just mentioned, the 57 million?
Well, the SSBCI is a loan program, and that there's no forgiving in the SSBCI. It's just that when your collateral is not enough to the bank to satisfy the bank, the grant can come in and help you with that collateral. But that is a loan program that is to help the small business, but you need to repay it back.
So in essence, it's similar. One is a loan, one is a boost, but in general, they're designed to support the small business community. With respect to the kind of requirements that I both require, what would you say is the big difference between the two?
Well, the Boost program is just something that we created here under the ARPA program. So there's actually no rules that we can say, we can follow because it's already been there as a grant program. It's just money made available, to support the business out there that are affected by the COVID and the typhoons and all that. But there's no such program that exists already. That's why we're coming up to make the to design how we're going to roll this thing out with the people that are responsible for the for with the money.
And so would you say that the boost requirements are much less than the other program I'm mentioning?
I can say that, yes.
Would you say that the lack of documentation or lack of requirements for the boost program would be a concern when you think about how both pots of money are coming from federal entities that have a lot of rules and requirements?
Well,
I mean, if one entity requires all these things because it's coming from federal money, wouldn't you see the comparison, how Boost was lacking so many of those things? And wouldn't that be a cause of concern to you as someone who manages a lot of these types of programs?
well, when we sat down for the planning of the Boost program, people that are aware of and responsible for the money that was going to be spent, and the contracting of the Bank of Saipan with their expertise, I rely on those knowledge and recommendation from them in terms of whether is it enough guidelines that we provide for the uses of this grant, and that's where we move forward from there.
Okay. Now, moving back to the Boost program, what documentation exists to show that the review was to show how the review was done after an application was submitted? What documentation exists? Are you aware of any?
I am not, no.
Okay. Do you know of any documentation presented for the release of a boost grant fund to a successful applicant? Like, how do they know that they receive this? Is there a letter that goes with the
Yeah,
check?
My understanding is yes, they have to sign a letter of acceptance. And also there is some conditions in the letter in terms of the use of the money,
And who has the final approval for any grant and grant amount?
the governor.
How is this money transferred to an applicant?
Well, the administrator is Banco Saipan. I think finance, transfer money down to Banco Saipan to make the payments for these awards.
So they have to transfer, make an electronic money transfer?
I'm
To
not
Bank of
su-
Saipan?
I'm not sure how finance does that.
Would, were you involved in any of the political campaign of Governor Ralph Torres and Senator Vinny Sablan? And if so, please describe your involvement,
Yes, I am involved. I am a member of the CT,
the committee to elect.
Yes.
What is your membership?
just a member.
Just a member.
Mhm.
Was the Boost program discussed in your meetings as a
Absolutely.
CTE member?
Absolutely not.
Was the Boost program actively being engaged as a political strategy to gain votes?
No.
Prior to the general election, during the runoff election period, there were numerous television ads, social media advertisements running. Then suddenly it stopped after the runoff election results. Despite the ongoing receipt and disbursements of boost checks, why did the marketing end after the runoff?
I cannot answer you that because I'm not part of the marketing of this.
Are you
It
aware
is out
of how the marketing processed its payments?
I'm not aware of that. No.
Why do you think that there was a peak in the request to disperse checks right around election time?
I am not. I don't know.
As a member of the planning group, how did you make sure that the Boost program confirmed that funds were expended consistent with ARPA regulations?
Well, we discussed that, and as I said, I'm not well versed in terms of how the ARPA funding regulations, but we rely on the Secretary of Finance to guide us on to make sure that these things are rolled out correctly.
Do you know how the advertising for the Boost program was designed?
No,
Do you know why the color scheme for Boost was consistent with the campaign materials of Governor Torres?
I'm not aware of that. No.
I yield for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Staffler. I'm sorry. I recognize Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I just have a few questions and some follow-up questions. So for clarification purposes, are non-US citizens eligible to receive Boost money?
I as far as I know, there is no restriction in terms of citizenship as long as you have uh, you know ongoing business license here to do business in the cinema.
Do you know if that's allowable under the funding source guidelines?
I am not aware of that.
Did you take some time to review the funding source guidelines to ensure that the program is in compliance with those guidelines?
And as I said, I guess I'm relying on the Secretary of Finance who knows the guidelines on those things, how to use the money to guide us. And as far as I understand, those people that are in existence right now with their business are eligible for the program.
I understand that you said that you recused yourself from review from being a panel member, but since you designated Mr. Taisagui, did you feel it was necessary that he familiarizes himself with the guidelines to ensure strict adherence to those guidelines?
Well, yes. Well, Mr. Taisagwi is always from the beginning. I bring him over to this planning, and so the whole time he was there, and the whole time also that we were planning on rolling this out, and what are the different requirements that the Secretary of Finance is there with us, and the Chief of Staff is there with us that understands more about these fundings and where they're coming from, and what are the allowable uses for the funding.
So it is your testimony and your understanding that the Secretary of Finance is the sole responsible person for ensuring that the program is compliant with.
That's my
Got it.
understanding.
Okay. What is your understanding as far as processes goes on how boost applications were to be submitted?
Well, the process is, as I said before, the process is that they submit it over to Banco Saipan, and then and if they need any assistance, Banco Saipan will provide some assistance to them. But and then Banco Saipan reviews it for completeness of the application, and then submit those complete lists to the panel.
Were applicants allowed to submit online?
I think so. Yes.
Okay. Were any boost applications ever submitted or given to you directly, whether in person, via email, via WhatsApp, or any other form of electronic communication?
Not that I no.
Okay. Did you at any time suggest it to Bank of Saipan or any of the review panel to prioritize and or expedite certain applications?
No, and I've not. I don't have any communication with Banco Saipan.
Earlier, you stated that meetings took place at Bank of Saipan, correct?
Yes.
And where in Bank of Saipan did those meetings take place?
We meet on the second floor. There's a conference room in the second floor.
Okay, so it was in the conference room, not Mr. Arroyo's office, not.
Right next to Mr. Royce.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys ever meet in the room designated for where the boost applications were being stored?
Not that I recall, no.
Okay. And it is your testimony that you've never reviewed any applications, correct?
No.
Okay. Mr. Arroyo testified that he has seen you with Mr. Taisagut together at Bank of Saipan in the room where the boost applications were being stored. Would you say that is accurate?
No.
Okay. Did you have an alternate for Mr. Taisagut in case he has to recuse himself due to conflict of interest?
No, not that I know. No.
So
I
what
don't.
was
I do not.
so hypothetically, if he had to recuse himself due to conflict of interest, who would step in for him?
Nobody, because the panel will still be a quorum. It's only three of them. So if he stepped out, there's still two people that can make the decision.
So the decision can be made just by two people?
Yes, that's my understanding. Yes.
Okay. And last one, to your knowledge, are any of the boost recipients delinquent on other taxes or behind on their tax filings and or payments?
I am not aware of that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Ayu.
Thank you. Recognize Rep. Sablon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just going back to your conversation, Secretary De Leon Guerrero, with Mr. Taisagui, when you said that he asked you about being a local representative or agent for a business, why did he ask you that?
No, he asked me whether, no, he asked me whether a local agent is considered, part owner of the business,
Mhm.
and I don't know why, but he brought this up because I guess they were talking about conflict of interest,
Mhm.
and so I told him that under the register of corporation, a local agent is just an agent to be served, subpoenas or anything like that, but not I'm not, but not an owner of the business, no.
Mhm.
And we discussed that because I guess no after during our discussion, I told him that even if you're not owner of the business but your name is in the corporation, I think you should recuse yourself
Mhm.
because that can be seen as a conflict of interest. And you don't necessarily have to be a part of the business to, to say you recuse yourself. Even with that, people or will look at that as that you are in that business. So that was just a discussion. I think it was just running it through me because there's some concerns out there about conflict of interest.
Okay. And in this meeting, was it just you and Mr. Taisagui having this discussion, or was this with the other members of the
No,
Boost
this
group?
was just me and Mr. Tyson. We coming up, he come up to my office.
I see. And did he express to you that he himself was a local agent
No,
for a
we didn't
business?
get into that. We didn't get into that conversation.
He was just asking you a general question.
Yes.
Okay. And he also said that there was a discussion happening in the group about a conflict of interest.
Yes, and I asked him. I said, "What is the procedure? What are you guys doing if there's a conflict of interest?" And he said, "Well, the panel have agreed that anybody who has a conflict of interest should recuse themselves."
Okay. And in this discussion, was there any sort of definition or agreement that they arrived at what a conflict of interest actually entails?
I'm not aware of. No.
Okay. But you never saw anything in writing
No.
anyway?
No.
Okay. However, you said it was your position that even a little bit of a conflict was enough to recuse,
Yes.
right? And even the appearance of a conflict is enough to recuse?
Appearance.
Mhm.
I guess that's up to the individual to decide, no, whether that's enough for him to recuse. But I cannot. But I'm just saying that even if just to avoid some people no concluding that you have a conflict. I think my recommendation is just get out of that
Yeah.
so that you don't create this kind of
Okay. So in your view, even the appearance of a conflict should be enough to recuse.
yeah
And if you knew that the ARPA rules actually also make some reference to the fact or the appearance of conflict, then for sure with the
of course,
Boost program,
yes,
right? It should, even the appearance should be enough.
get out,
Is being a business partner for an applicant enough of a conflict?
of course.
And you already said being a local representative because of the appearance, right? Is being a family member enough of a conflict?
I guess it all depends on what you mean by family member.
Like an immediate family
Because
member,
if it's my wife applying, then of
Mhm.
course you're in conflict.
right? A spouse.
But if it's my cousin or my third cousin applying, then I
Okay.
think they have that privilege to apply on.
Okay, but an immediate family member, a spouse,
Yes.
a parent,
Yes,
a
yes,
step parent.
yes. Those
Yeah. How about being the domestic partner or boyfriend, even if they're not married officially?
well, I guess that has to be interpreted by the individual. But for me,
Mhm.
if I am the applicant, even if it's my girlfriend and it has to do with her, I will recuse myself.
Okay, because it appears to be a conflict.
Yeah, yes.
Yes. And are you aware that Secretary Atelig personally submitted applications for Boost
No,
to members of the review panel
No.
on behalf of certain individuals?
no,
Okay. And you never talked to Secretary Atelig about any of these applications that he himself submitted?
no,
Did you ever talk to Secretary Atelig about any applications?
no. I've never discussed anybody's application with any one of the
Okay.
panel.
And not even with Mr. Castro then?
No,
Or with Mr. Taisagui?
no.
To your knowledge, did the review panel ever meet all together at one time to review applications?
Yes, I've seen them met all together to discuss. I've seen them meet in Bank of Saipan,
Mm-hmm.
but I cannot vouch that they all the time they meet together. But I've seen them. Yes.
Like how many times would you say they met all together to
I-
review
I-
applications?
I've seen them maybe like 2 to 3 times, but I cannot vouch how many times they've met because I'm not privy to their meeting.
Okay. Okay, but at least 2 to 3 times that you know of that they all came
that
together.
They all in there. Yes.
Mr. Taisagui, Secretary Atelig,
And
Mr. Castro. Okay. Okay, and then going back to what you said earlier about Mr. Castro's role, you stated that he was basically the leader, right? The director of the Boost program.
not the director, but he's like a coordinator. You know, he
Okay.
goes for the meeting when we need to meet. So
Mhm.
I look at him as leading the group.
Okay. And he was, of course, representing the governor, right? From the
Yes.
office of the governor.
Office of the governor.
And you stated that the whole idea for boost came from the office of the governor,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And that the governor was the final approving authority for all of these decisions.
That is correct.
Okay. Are you aware also of Mr. Castro's role in the political campaign for Governor Torres and Senator Sablan?
Yes, I am a member of the CTE, and I know that he also was a member of the CTE.
And what was Mr. Castro's role in the committee to elect?
I think he plays different role, but I know that he is a campaign chairman or something like that. He leads the pocket meetings.
Mhm. He leads the pocket meetings.
Yeah,
Okay.
sometimes he leads the pocket meeting. But what else he does in there, I don't know because
Mhm.
I'm just a member.
Okay. Yeah, he testified that he was the campaign manager
Yeah, something like that.
for Torres Sablan. And so you recognized him as the
Yes,
campaign
yes,
manager.
yes.
Okay. And did Mr. David Atalik also have a role in the Torres Sablan political campaign?
Not that I'm aware of. No, no,
Okay. Not in the committee to elect,
no, no.
but he would attend events sometimes.
Sometimes, yes.
Okay. And how about Mr. Taisagui? Did he have a role in the political campaign for
Yeah,
Governor Torres?
Mr. Taisak is also a member of the city.
Also a member of the CT?
Yes.
Okay. So going back to your statement then about whether or not the Boost program was part of a political strategy, how do you know that the Boost program was not part of a political strategy to aid in the campaign of Torres and Sablan?
Well, I can only place that when I'm in a meeting in the planning and all that, politics was never mentioned,
Mhm.
or favoritism because of politics affiliation was never a topic in our meeting. I cannot vouch for any other no member of the boost program or the CTE, but I'm just saying that is how I go. I know and I go through by myself when we have
So you're
meetings.
talking about when you were in meetings for the Boost program
Yeah.
with the Bank of Saipan and
Yes.
with the other members of the review panel.
There-
There was never discussion of politics.
Never discussion on political.
Okay. And then what about for meetings of the campaign? Was there ever discussion of Boost?
No,
And-
no. I've never heard of that too.
Uh-huh. Okay. Could you talk about how Bank of Saipan was selected to be the administrator for the Boost program?
I am sorry, but I wasn't a part of that. I don't even know how the Bank of Saipan was selected. When we came into the organization, it's already Bank of Saipan was already working with us.
Okay. Um, okay. But you understood their role to be the administrator.
Yes, I was made to understand that they are the administrator.
And as the administrator, their role exactly was to do what?
For me, the role is to administer the program. Ensuring that all the requirements of the programs are followed, and ensuring that the program is carried out, based on its purpose and the objectives.
Okay. And could you help us understand why weren't clear guidelines and standards and things like caps on awards or total amounts available for different types of grants under the Boost program? Why weren't those standards published or made public?
I I, I cannot answer that. I wasn't part of the what do you call this the advertising of all these different.
Mhm. Okay, but do you think in your role as the Secretary of Commerce, the role that you played in this program, do you think that those standards and guidelines should have been published?
Well, I'm aware that they publish out the requirements of the applications, what's needed, but I'm not aware of publishing out the limits or the threshold for each of the different programs.
Right, right. Yeah, that those were not published.
Okay.
Do you think that they should have been published for the public to know?
it, it would have helped, yes. But the thing is that as we move forward and more money was put in, then at the beginning there, we really don't know exactly whether that's the only amount of money available for the boost program. So at that time, we didn't come up with that kind of.
And who was deciding how much money would be available for the boost program?
Of course, that's the governor's office and finance.
Ultimately,
Yes.
the governor and
Yeah,
finance.
because I don't know. We don't know how much money we have under ARPA.
Um, okay. Going back to the Bank of Saipan, so were you aware that they were awarded the contract without even a request for proposals?
No, I'm not aware. As I said, when I started getting involved with the boost program, Bank of Saipan is already in the picture.
Okay. And then, did you know that the Bank of Saipan was also an applicant for a boost grant?
No.
When did you? Do you
I-
know now?
I only
that
know
they were?
now after listening to the discussion here,
Mhm.
but I didn't know that.
Okay. So you didn't review their application for a boost
No,
grant then?
no.
Okay. If you had known, what would you have thought of that? If you had known that the boost program administrator was applying for a boost grant?
Well, again, the I would have probably brought it up on in our meeting as in general, but the fact that there was no restriction as to who can apply, uh, I didn't know that at that time, so I didn't bring anything up.
Because there were no restrictions.
Yes,
And really no rules.
no guidelines
Right.
for who can apply.
And then how are decisions about awards actually made? Like how much an applicant would get?
I don't know. That is done by the by the what do you call this the panel. So I really don't know how they come about giving this person 30,000 or for 50,000. I am not aware of that.
Okay. So that wasn't discussed during your planning meetings, how the award amounts would be determined?
No. In our planning meeting, there was no discussion on how much can be given out. It's just that when the panel makes the decision in terms of what percentage each applicant will be given that are going to be recommended over to the governor.
I see. And was there any discussion about applicants being boosted more than once and getting more than one award?
Uh, no, we there's no discussion on applicants getting that I am aware of, or applicant getting more than one award.
Are you aware that there are applicants who got boosted
Now
more than once?
I'm aware now because I've heard all that.
Yeah. Do you know ultimately how Bank of Saipan came to be awarded twice in amounts of $250,000?
I'm sorry, no.
Do you know how other nonprofits also came to be awarded more than once?
Well, I guess that's the panel's decision. I don't know. I don't participate in deciding whether the applicant should be given one or twice award.
Yeah, and sometimes the same business owner, in some cases,
Oh,
also received multiple awards for multiple businesses. Do you know how that happened?
no.
That was just for the review panel to decide.
Yes.
Do you think that there might be anything questionable about giving the Boost program administrator, a bank, the largest award of all?
I will. don't know it. It's just that I don't know anything about that award.
But do you think it's questionable in any way?
Could be, yes.
And why?
Well, because again, they are the administrating authority for the program.
Mhm.
But as I said, there is no restriction or guidelines in terms of who can apply for the program.
Mhm.
But
Yeah, and again, going back to what you were saying about distributing these funds fairly and spreading it out as much as possible to benefit as many people. When you hear things like that there was a bank that was administering the program that got the biggest amount of all, that there were some businesses that got more than one award, some nonprofits that got boosted more than once. What do you have to say about that then? Does that sound fair? Like there was a fair process applied in the boost program?
uh, well, my understanding was when that kind of issue comes up was that there are additional funding coming in, to the boost program that will be able to spread out more to all the applicants that have not received a boost award. And it's the emphasis really that I always try to push is that let's award as many as we can on the first round,
Mm-hmm.
prior to going to the second round.
Yeah.
But I was made to understand that there's more money coming in, and that's why I didn't really object too much to that.
And is there more money coming in?
I'm not sure. I heard there is. I know that there's additional money that came in, but for any future money coming in, I'm not sure. That was uh, the Secretary of Finance, assurance to us that there may be some money coming in.
And when was that?
That was when we're going to extend the program again
Mm-hmm.
up to November 20, beyond November 2029, I think, or something.
That was the
So,
last time you heard that there might be additional money?
Yes.
Okay. But right, that there were more than 4,000 applicants?
Not to the small business. More than 4,000 applicants that includes all the other programs under the boost,
Mm-hmm.
but not the small business where we're involved.
Okay.
The small businesses, I think, if I'm not mistaken, we have about close to 1,000 applicants.
Close to 1,000
Yeah,
applicants.
for small business. And then the farmers and fishermen and all that. There's a lot of applicants for that. Yes.
Right, and of course, workforce development.
Yeah, and then
right?
we're not part
Right.
of those.
Okay, so of the 1,000 business applicants, was it just about 200 or less than 200 that actually received?
I thought there's more than 200. I think.
But I think that's including all the nonprofits too, right?
Yeah, all the
Yeah.
award that was given includes nonprofit.
Okay.
But I believe I'm not too sure because I don't get report from them. But my understanding is that just from the subpoena that there's about already 242 at that time, and then now, but that was the deadline is before they stopped the program or before the deadline was I think for the subpoena was just in November, no, but they're still rolling out some more approval. So I think there's more than 242
Okay.
applicants that have received funding.
Yeah. And now that you know that there were some who got more than one, some who got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, the bank got $500,000, and then some got $10,000 here and there, and a lot, the majority actually, didn't get anything at all. Does that sound like a fair process was applied in this program?
Fair. I cannot answer that because again, that's the panel that decides whether what is fair in terms of allocating out.
But from your perspective, you have a more independent perspective, right? Since you didn't review any applications. But as the Secretary of Commerce, and you were concerned from the very beginning about the fairness of this program.
Mhm.
Does that sound fair?
Well, I would have liked to see, spread out, to as many applicants as we can
Mhm.
based on the funding that we have.
To help as many people as
Yes,
possible,
yes.
right? Thank you. I yield, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Rep. Sablan. In the interest of time, we'll close out with the co-chair and then recess for lunch, and then we'll come back. So at this time, I recognize the co-chair.
Thank you, Chairman Donald. Mr. Guerrero, De Leon Guerrero, did you ever attend any of the parties promoting the boost programs, the mixer, the gala, the
No,
expo? You
no,
never
no,
attended any one of them?
no. The parties? No,
Yeah, the mixers, they call.
no. I don't attend the mixers and at no,
No, okay. Not even the boost expo?
I think I only attended one, and that's the one that has to do with the small business. But the other ones that they're doing in the duty free and naked fish and all that, I never attend those.
Duty free naked fish. Do you know of any other location they had it?
No, because I don't
Okay.
I don't attend those.
Um, as part of the member who was meeting in the first phase to create this boost program, did you ever meet anywhere else outside of Bank of Saipan?
No,
No, it was all conducted at
at
the
Banco Saipan.
Bank of Saipan. Thank you. Um, you mentioned earlier that there were no rules pertaining to the boost program. Is that your correct testimony?
No rules in terms of who can apply. That's what I'm
Or
saying.
just the guidelines in general?
There are some guidelines in terms of the application requirements.
But what about the approval process, the review process?
I'm not aware of that. No, that's
Okay,
not, I'm not
so
aware
there's
of
no
that.
rules regarding
I'm
those.
not part of that approving process, so I don't.
So not even the review process, the approval process. Basically, you kept mentioning there's no rules, right?
No, the
Throughout
rules
your,
that I'm mentioning is that there's no rules in terms of who can apply. Who's eligible. Who can apply. The only rules is that they have to be an existing business
an
or
existing business.
or a new business coming in with their plans and nonprofit.
But
But
initially, this was conceptualized as helping businesses who suffered during the COVID. Is that correct? Was that a part of your?
that's one of the reason for the program. Yes.
That's one of the reasons for the.
Yeah.
But there were no rules subsequent to meetings you've had. The rules changed, and it could be anybody
No.
to
Yeah.
apply.
Well. Yeah. I have
Yeah.
never seen any rules that spell out who can apply, who cannot.
So basically, the rules are, at least in terms of the application process, basically the rules are whatever Mr. Castro said it was, whatever Mr. Taisagi said it was, whatever Mr. Atalik said it was. Is that correct?
In
If there
ter-
were no rules as to who could apply, basically that was the operating rules.
Well, yes, yeah. Anybody who is an establishment here, a business establishment here that's current uh, and have paid your taxes are eligible to apply.
Sure, but this was initially conceptualized to help businesses.
That's one of the reasons why we the boost
One
program.
of the
That's my
reasons why
understanding.
the boost program was initiated. Is that correct? Because of businesses and nonprofits who suffered
Yes.
during the COVID. But then it changed, and it could be any business, not necessarily those who suffered during the COVID. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah, where we are also accepting new business that are trying to get into the economy and that needs help, starting their business. And so there's different the three categories. Like. One is a new business coming in that wants to be part of the economy, and number two is they call it Bravo, the ones that are existing right now that wants to
The not
start,
anymore.
no anymore, and then a nonprofit. Yes.
So again, basically the rules were whatever Mr. Castro, Mr. Atalik, and Mr. Taisagi said it was. Because there are no written rules.
I guess whatever the yeah.
Okay, thank you. Have you watched or heard the testimony of Mr. William Castro and Mr. Arroyo?
I listened to some of it, not the entire thing.
Okay, do you have any concerns regarding their testimony? Knowing what this program appears to be this now, based on the revelations of Mr. Arroyo, Mr. Castro?
No, I don't have any concern.
You don't have any
That's their-
concerns?
Yeah.
Um, are you related to any of the beneficiaries of the boost?
Which one? The applicants?
The awardees, those who
Oh,
received.
I don't know. I don't even know who they are.
We published them yesterday.
Yes, but in Saipan, it all depends on what you mean by you know no relatives or things like that, because most of the people in Saipan are relatives.
I agree.
Yeah. So, but in terms of
So most likely some,
close to
right?
myself, the ones that I can say conflict of interest. No, I don't think there's any applicant in there that I can consider myself a conflict of interest.
Okay. Even though you haven't seen the list, that would be your statement.
Yeah, based on what I know, I'm not aware of any of my family that who applied for the boost program that is that close to me.
Okay. We've talked a little bit about conflicts of interest. And then also we've talked about your involvement with the committee to elect Governor Torres and Senator Vinny Saplan. We've talked about Mr. Castro also being the chairperson or campaign manager of that committee to elect. We've talked about Mr. Atalik being involved in that committee as well. We've talked about Mr. Taisagui being involved in that committee as well. And yet you say the boost program was not used as a political machine to get Governor Torres reelected. Is that your testimony today?
Yes, that's my testimony. Yes.
So would you say it's purely coincidence that all members of the committee to re-elect Governor Torres happen to be directly involved in the boost program?
Oh, I
It's a
cannot.
coincidence then? We're supposed to believe that it is coincidence?
Oh, to me, I cannot answer that question
Why not?
because these are it's a small island, and just because I am part of that city committee doesn't mean that I will support and colluded with the people that are trying to roll this program out. This program is a very good program for the people, but I don't personally I don't think of connecting this with politics. I've been in politics for so long, and I don't think it is. I have my responsibility as a Secretary of Commerce. I have my responsibility to the people that are entitled for this program, and I never had in my mind to make politics be part of this decision process.
Okay. You just mentioned that the boost program is a very good program,
Hmm.
but there are no rules as to who can apply. There's no guidance.
Yeah, well,
Would you say it's still a good program, that it was run unfairly?
in terms of who can apply, my understanding is that everyone can apply that's qualified.
I agree.
Mhm.
And we've already stated that and established that here, but based on the beneficiaries list, would you say it's still a good program? Knowing who the beneficiaries are?
Well, it's our people that we help. I don't know whether they are they are Democrat or they're independent or what, but it is our people that we help that this program was rolled out to and helped. So for me, as long as we're helping our people,
What do you
good
mean our
program for me.
people?
It is our business people that are here that are benefiting from this.
Are you aware that a single individual received over $600,000?
No,
You're not aware. Would that be concerning to you?
yes, it is.
What do you have to say about the other applicants who are still waiting for an answer? Knowing that there's no more funds because it was all given
Oh,
to the first batch, what do you have to say?
I wasn't aware that there's no more funds. I was made to believe that there are still funding coming. And that's why the extension of this program went on. But that's my understanding. I'm not aware that there's no more funds for this program. I thought there's still funds going on. And my understanding is that I don't know whether this program is still on right now. We have not stopped the process of the boost program unless there is an imposition right now that we should stop. But to my understanding,
Are you aware the FBI visited the Bank of Saipan?
I am aware. Yes,
What do you have to say to that?
I cannot comment on that because I don't know what's the whole purpose.
Okay, thank you. I yield.
We'll just take one more from Rep. Probst.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You've heard. I'm sure you've seen in the paper some of the comments, or you've heard from the public about the frustrations with this program. And I do know you've repeated that you have said that you were not a panelist. You've made that clear. But Mr. Secretary, based on your testimony today, it kind of changes things in a bit because that eliminates you as a panelist, and we are left wondering that was there only two panelists, and the only two panelists that we can think of would be your designee, right, Mr. Jess Taisagui,
Yes.
and Mr. Will Castro. And it is your earlier testimony that you do know that both of them served on the committee to elect Ralph Torres. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
That is correct. Now, Mr. Secretary, the fact that there may be only two panelists to review over 4,000 applications for the Boost program, over 4,000 to review, that includes the proposals to make sure that even though the Bank of Saipan did show that they had the tax returns and everything, you still had to review many pages of documents. I reviewed a few, and they were voluminous. They were thick, and there was a lot involved in just one application, sir.
Mm.
You're talking about two gentlemen reviewing over 4,000 applicants. Do you think that's an incredible amount of applications for just two people to be responsible for processing, selecting, reviewing, and awarding, and deciding how much they should get? What are your thoughts on that, sir?
Oh, first of all, let me just clarify certain things. The number of applicants that this panel reviews is not 4,000. This panel only reviews the application for the small business, which is less than 1,000.
And how?
And also, there is 3 members of the panel, not just 2.
Well, first, how would you know that if you were never involved with the panelists? How would you have that information, sir?
Because the group that I'm together is we're only concerned about the small business. The farmers and all that have a different group that handles that.
That is correct, sir. But from our understanding, we were told that there were thousands of applicants for small businesses, not for the farmers and fishermen, sir. We were told that there were thousands of applications turned in for the Boost application for small businesses. And these small businesses are not limited to literally just small businesses, sir. They are also, we found out, corporations had applied. Bank of Saipan had applied and received an award. So it wasn't just small businesses, sir. But what are your thoughts on two gentlemen reviewing thousands of applications? Do you think that it is fair that two could make the ultimate decision on how much a business should receive and whether or not they should receive just two persons? Do you think that would be overwhelming for anyone?
Well, I think that's a lot of applications, but as I said, the 4,000 application that the Bank of Saipan was talking about, we was talking about is not just a small business. That includes all the other program. My understanding is that for small business, it's only close to 1,000 applicants. So, and the panel that are reviewing this, the small business, are three people, not just two.
Who are the three?
Dave Atalik and Will and no, Taisagwe.
Okay, and I thank you for that. Just I'll wrap this up right now. I just wanted to say in earlier testimony, it was the testimony of Mr. John Arroyo who said he never saw Mr. David Atalik present in the or he never saw him going to the Bank of Saipan. Never saw them together with Mr. Taisagui and also with Mr. Castro. So that does concern us.
That to me, that I can vouch for myself that I've been in a meeting in Bank of Saipan, which include the Secretary of Finance, more than one time.
So it is your testimony that Mr. Atelig was in fact a panelist.
Yes.
And he was one of the three.
Yes.
So it is three that were deciding and selecting and awarding thousands of applicants. Is that your testimony,
That
sir?
is correct.
I yield and I thank you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Point of clarification. You testified earlier that you were only involved in the initial phase to launch the Boost program. Is it in that phase that you saw Mr. David Atalik attending these meetings?
No, not just on the initial, but on the overall aspect of the program when we meet to decide whether the program should be extended, whether we meet to find out how many, how is the program moving. That's we all meet together from the for all the people that were there in the initial. We continue to monitor this program. The only section of this program that not all of us are together is in the panel. When the panel meet, that's only three people that meet. But when we try to do, when there's
How do you
questions,
know Mr. David Atalik was in that panel meeting to review applications if you testified all day today,
no,
all
no, no, I'm,
morning,
only,
that
I'm
you
answering
are
back.
not a part of that meeting, those meetings?
No, I'm answering back, Congressman, when he says John Arroyo have not seen Dave Atalik, in a meeting. I have seen him more than three times.
Reviewing applications?
No. In our general meeting at
Okay.
the bank.
Okay, thank
At
you
the bank.
for clarifying that.
Yes.
So he was involved in other
Yes.
meetings, but not in the reviewing of
I
applications?
cannot vouch for that. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Members, at this time, we will recess for lunch and we will return at 1:30. All right. Thank you. Short recess.